Hello and welcome back to Yankee Prepper's channel on excellence and elitism. Now, to be honest with you, this wasn't the video that I had planned. See, I had went or attempted to go hunting again last weekend and I had a major malfunction on the truck. Now, because I wasn't able to complete my hunting trip, I stayed home this weekend and actually got things done that needed to be done. And one of them was building these stoves. I have a group of kids that I mentor and volunteer for at my church. And with Christmas coming up, I thought I'd do a vid on this as well for you guys if you're interested in learning how to make a homemade alcohol stove. I would really recommend this one. This one's Yankee Prepper approved. It's a good stove, powerful, and fast. First, I want to share my hunting trip failure with you, though. And the reason why I want to share it with you is I just think there's so many prepper lessons in this. You know, number one, your equipment. Your equipment can fail you. It will fail you. It's not should not be the most important factor. It should not be what you're leaning on the most. It is your knowledge and skill. Whether you're handling real life or whether it's an emergency situation, that's going to be the number one factor. The other thing is, if you're going to pursue this, where you're going to go out into the bush, if you want to pursue this kind of lifestyle, and I love this kind of lifestyle. I love going out there and being challenged. Stuff is going to break. It's going to break. Things are going to go wrong. In fact, sometimes it seems as if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And this is a great example of that. Now, unfortunately, I didn't take any film of this, because when you're in these situations, the last thing you feel like doing is starting up the camera and saying, what am I, this went wrong, and what am I going to do, you know? So we're going to use, out of the advanced technical side of the Yankee Prepper studio, we're going to call upon special effects today. We've spent a lot of money in this department, and we're pretty proud of the Yankee Prepper special effects department. And so we're going to recreate the hunting trip failure for you. Okay, here we go. I've got 4 scenes I'm going to walk you through here. Now, last Thursday, I got everything packed up and ready to go, and took off about 2 hours late, unfortunately. I don't like to do that. I like to set up camp and get settled before the sun goes down in most cases. And then I was going to hunt Friday morning, Friday evening, Saturday morning, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, and then come home. Unfortunately, I got off late and headed up there. It won't be the first time I've set up in the dark, so I wasn't really worried about it. But that was, you know, that began the ball rolling on things that could have went wrong or things that didn't work out. We've gotten some snow up north. It's probably a little bit over my ankle at this point. So that's what I was coming into. And you've got to imagine that the roads that I'm going to be going down into some of these areas are just goat trails. And we've had some warm weather where there's, you know, soft or frozen, you know, semi-frozen mud underneath. The mud puddles are iced over. And then we get about, 5 to 6 inches of snow on top of that. Again, a little bit over my ankles. So those are some of the trails that I'm going to be driving on when I'm going down these roads once I get up there. So I put it in 4-wheel drive, and I head down my first road, and I take a turn here and take a turn there. And probably 5-6 miles in, if you'll go to scene number 1, I started to go up my first decent incline. As I'm going up, I can feel the truck in the rear end spinning out a little bit, and that's unusual, because if I have it in 4-wheel drive, usually it handles it just fine. As I started to get up halfway up this incline on this goat trail out in the middle of nowhere with these ruts and frozen mud and snow, I'm slowing down. I mean, I can tell something's really wrong. You don't want to stop on an incline in snow with a large vehicle and no way to turn around. I had no choice. It eventually ran out of momentum, no matter how. You know, I tried with everything I knew to keep it going. I was just trying to get to the top of the hill. It stops on the hill. Your worst nightmare. Got the trailer. Truck is stopped. It's dark. Bigfoot is in the bushes around me. Wolves, dire wolves, trolls, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can't see. It's dark, dark. So when something like this happens, you just, it's like, you know, it hits you that you're way out here. You got to imagine that I cannot turn this vehicle around. It's probably another, almost a mile back on this road to a point where I can turn around, and I can no longer go forward. And it's pitch black out. I mean, it just kind of hits you like, wow. So the first thing I do is just assess my situation, what's going wrong. And the first thing that I notice is that the 4-wheel drive is disengaged, the light's out. So I try to engage it several times, nothing happens. I check the fuse, and sure enough, the 4-wheel drive fuse is blown. Okay, so I replace the fuse, put it in four-wheel drive, it immediately blows again. So now I've made up my mind out here. That's about as much as I can do mechanically. I'm thinking either the four-wheel drive unit is blown itself or the actuator is blown. Now I can tell you with hindsight now and everything, I'm home and fine. It was the actuator, and the actuator is just a $100 part that sits on the front axle, and it's a piston that engages your four-wheel drive, and that picked that moment in the middle of nowhere to blow out. So I realized that I've probably got a mile to go backwards. I obviously cannot back this trailer up a mile. It's impossible in the conditions that I'm in. But if I can get up here, I know in another half a mile there's probably a place to turn around. So I try to get a little bit to the side of the road, hoping I can grab some dry gravel if I can get down there and make it up to the top of the hill. But it doesn't work that way. The back end, this is a very heavy vehicle. I have to explain, the diesel vehicle is over 7,000 pounds, and then I've got the trailer on the back. I mean, this is just the worst situation. Pointed uphill, slippery conditions, stopped. So I try to creep up the hill, and all I do is end up jackknifing it. I get down into what would be the ditch, and once I get down in this ditch, I'm through. I mean, I'm stuck. And I'm in no mortal danger here. I have my tent, my food, a way to heat, guns. You know, I mean, I'm safe, but it's very uncomfortable. I'm blocking the whole road. You know, if somebody does come down here by some chance, I've got, you know, I've got guns, all this equipment out here stuck. I want to avoid, you know, having a wrecker come all the way out here. I am at least 10 miles away from the nearest town, and these are small towns. Nothing's open, you know. So I'm trying to assess this whole situation. So the first thing I do whenever I'm in a pinch like this is I go to my Father. I go to my Heavenly Father, and I ask Him for help. He's used to it. I'm always screaming for help. And I don't ask Him to handle it. I just do a short prayer and ask Him to give me the strength and wisdom to handle this situation. That's the first thing I do. After that, I went to work. I dropped the gate, got the ATV off. Then I unhooked the trailer on this hill and turned it around and hooked it up to my ATV. Now the trailer is nicely weighted. You know, it's balanced well. That's one of the reasons why I really like it. But unhooking it on a hill on a goat trail and trying to turn it around by myself was quite the circus. I actually wish I would have had a camera going at that time. Then I drove the ATV the half mile, 3/4 mile back to a turnaround. There are certain island turnarounds that maybe the logging companies made to park their own equipment or vehicles, and you can find them every so often. This one was, I know, more than about a half a mile back. So after parking the ATV, I'll walk back to my truck, and using my flashlight pointing backwards and my head hanging out the window, I try to retrace my own tire tracks all the way back. And I mean, it was touch and go. I knew, you know, one mistake, I'm in the ditch, I'm done. And the truck's floating all over the place, of course. But I managed to make it back to the turnaround. I pull the truck in and immediately get stuck. And again, there's some great advantages to the diesel. It's really heavy. This vehicle's over 7,000 pounds. So once you get some really loose, mushy, semi-frozen stuff underneath some snow, it's pretty hard. However, after some choice words and, you know, digging it for a while, I actually was able to get the truck back on the road. Then I hitched up the trailer, put the ATV in, and white knuckling it, you know, to the point where my mouth, you know, was dry from adrenaline. I managed to make it back to the road that night, and that felt so good, you know, that I can't even tell you. It was almost like, you know, such a relief. I'm actually still enjoying it even now, you know, on Tuesday, just to know that I had the ability to get out of there. You know, all those nights that I spent doing shitties at 16 years old and Kmart parking lot during all those winters when I was a kid, all of that experience paid off. You know, all that goofing off and jumping bridges and jumping ramps with the motorcycle and just all that playtime came into my life. It came back to my life here and my ability to get out of there. I mean, I'm not going to go into every detail, but you know, with no four-wheel drive, my only hope is to really keep the momentum going on the truck. I mean, every hill I would hit, and at times I was floating on the snow, but I managed to keep it on the path, and I got to the road and got out of there without the four-wheel drive. And man, I got to tell you, it feels good. It was an adventure in itself that you cannot pay for. The next day, after getting back, I didn't look into the truck any further. I went out and bought an actuator. It took me like 20 minutes to change that actuator. It just unscrews out of there. You unplug it, you screw it back in, and plug it back in basically on the front axle, and my problem was solved. My point to all this is that, you know, my wife often accuses me of making things look easy, but there was a price paid for that, because it's through failure that you gain experience. And this is a great example of that. The reason why I was able to get out of there is because I go into the bush, I keep going into the bush, I put myself into those situations, and failure does come up. So many men are afraid of failure that they won't try. And it is through failure that we learn. It is through failure that we gain that experience that's going to help us through those hard times. So that's why I like to challenge myself in these situations. So many people live their lives through sports that they're watching on television, while they're stuffing their face, or they watch these reality shows because it probably gives them a feeling of superiority, but really they're the losers sitting home watching these other people because they're too afraid to go out there. By going out there and putting yourself on the line, experiencing these things, that's how you gain confidence. That's how you gain skills.